customers. You're not going to be marketing in different ways. Even when you answer the phone, if you're not upbeat, your customers can sense that. And why do they want to do business with somebody that they perceive as a loser or somebody that's never going to make it in the business or is beginning to fail? They want to stay with the people that are upbeat, positive, want to grow, want to continue adding to the economy, bringing new people on board. It sends a positive message to your clients and prospective clients.
Now, you also mentioned hard work and how important that was to you and the Birch Group's success, but also for individuals out there, let's say, again, looking at career changes or small business people, trying to make their way into the world, new entrepreneurs. Isn't it true, and I've heard experts say that if you start getting a little down, things start, maybe you're a little blue, that work is one of the best ways to get out of that, meaning start doing things to move yourself in the right direction. It might not happen immediately, but at least your mindset would change.
Somewhat. A lot of it has to do with keeping the balance in your life. A strong family, a strong support mechanism behind you really helps to that. There are some people, all they do is think about their business, they forget about their families. If you listen to Stephen Covey, he talks about his relationship between his business, his family, and his God. You need to have an outlet. If all you do is work, after a while, you're going to get sick of it.
So a balance in anything you do.
Absolutely. There has to be the balance in there. You not only have to work hard, you have to play hard also.
Now, changing gears a little bit, and speaking of good work, one of the more interesting aspects of the Birch Group is your focus and dedication on education. And you talk about the overall economy of the United States. I personally think some of it obviously is due with cyclical forces and financial forces, but to some degree, do you believe that our lackluster performance in the educational area has also hurt us?
Absolutely, but I'm starting to see changes in that. The old methods of sitting kids in a classroom all day and the teacher getting up there and talking to them and teaching them is becoming passé. The kids with the electronic world, the kids now want much more immediate gratification. And what I find is the teachers that are able to integrate projects and to do some fun things and to keep the atmosphere lively are the ones that are truly reaching the children. And that's one of the things that we've done. We've developed a lot of methodologies in education that we teach teachers all over the United States and the territories on how to keep the students engaged. We primarily focus, I'm a firm believer in education, and education, especially as it applies to engineering and technology. I personally feel that heavy manufacturing is never coming back to the United States. What is going to really shoot our economy forward in years to come is the innovation, the new manufacturing for the 21st and 22nd century. It's exciting work. A lot of it is computer driven, and everyone in my company has a very strong feeling towards improving the educational system or various students into pursuing those careers and getting them ready for it.
What made you yourself so personally interested and dedicated into helping the educational environment for all people, all students?
It's interesting. I was, as you know, one of our primary fortes in the Birch Group is strategic and project planning. And some folks hired me to come in and do a strategic plan. They were going to do a grant for the National Science Foundation. And I started taking a look at what some of them were doing and the successes they were having. And one of the gentlemen said to me one night, he said, he says, it's a shame. He says, with my engineering experience and your business experience, it's a shame we can't put the two of them together and create some programs for the kids. And I said, Ron, put your money where your mouth is. And that started me on a path that has been probably one of the most rewarding things that I've ever done. It's become a large part of our business.
Mm-hmm. And why has it become such a point of personal satisfaction?
For two reasons. We primarily work with inner city children. A lot of the kids in the inner city are asked to study. They're asked to do math, become proficient in math, become proficient in English, become proficient in science. They can't relate it to what they see every day. What we do is provide them an opportunity to learn some skills that are going to help them through life, and to also get them excited about engineering and technology and actually do hands-on projects. Mm-hmm. They see that and they start to feel that engineering could be fun. And this is something that I've been professing to National Science Foundation for years. The kids today are looking for instant gratification. They want fun. Mm-hmm. It's our society. It's the way we raise them. So show them that engineering and technology are fun. Mm-hmm. The engineers and technologists play with the greatest toys and the most expensive toys in the world.
Yeah, it sounds good to me. You did mention something in terms of some of the inner city students fail to make the connection between what they're doing in class and what they see in their daily lives. What do you mean by that?
In the inner cities, many of the students are poor. As you know, in Connecticut, the disparity between the education in the suburbs, in the education and in the inner cities is amongst the highest disparity in the United States. Mm-hmm. Connecticut has some of the poorest cities in the United States, regardless of how much wealth the state does have. The kids pretty much stay in their neighborhoods or Hartford. We took some kids down to Washington, D.C., and a lot of the kids were just amazed. They had never left the borders of Connecticut, and they were in their teenage years. They just haven't had the opportunity. Mm-hmm. When they went down there and they saw other engineers and technologists, how smart they were, how well dressed they were, the type of lifestyles they were living, all of those kids came back and wanted to go to college.
Mm-hmm. Interesting, and I think it would also be interesting, the fact that, many of these inner city students, I believe from your experience, please comment on that, is once given that spark of light and see.
They run with it.
They run with it. So given that opportunity, there's no doubt in your mind that an inner city student can do just as well as any suburban student.
The inner city students have a lot of fortitude, and when they decide to do something, they do it. I love working with the inner city students. They're well behaved, they're interesting, they're funny, they're willing to work hard, they want to get ahead. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they just don't know how.
Yeah, John, to me that's a fascinating point, because I've also been involved in education, and from what I've learned, and please comment on this, or what I believe at least, is that someone in the suburbs has such a big advantage, just the way they grow up. They're exposed to early reading, all that, early, getting infused with, with early math. That gives them such an advantage. And on the contrary, someone that doesn't grow up in that environment, maybe their parents aren't good readers, aren't good at math, they're really behind the eight ball, aren't they?
They're also, many of them are also poor. Mm-hmm. My son was brought up knowing that he was going to go to college. The only question was, what college was he going to go to? Mm-hmm. A lot of these kids, the parents just scratch their head. I'll never be able to afford to pay for college. And I would, people in that situation, one of the things we try to do is stir them towards Connecticut's community colleges. They are the best kept secret in the state of Connecticut. I don't think since the recession, they're overflowing. But before then, a lot of folks didn't want to send their students to a community college. Mm-hmm. And I have a friend that's a professor at one of the major universities in the state. And what he said is that at the community colleges, they get almost as good an education as they do in a four-year university.
John, I would completely agree with that. And I think, especially in today's environment with college costs going through the roof, you put in a good 2 years at a community college, you go to UConn, you go to other great schools. I mean, it certainly makes sense. And I do agree they get a great sometimes a no frills, but I mean that in a good way, education, don't they?
Absolutely. In a pre-engineering program or a technology program, in any of the community colleges, there are 6 or 7 colleges right now that will accept 100% of the credits that they've earned in the community colleges. There are a lot of people supporting these efforts. It's just not me. I get a lot of support from the folks at CBIA. Wonderful. Fully committed to the children. The people at the Regional Center for Next Generation Manufacturing. There's quite a few folks out there right now that are truly trying to make a difference in these kids' lives. And I'm just proud and kind of honored that I've been able to be a part of it.
And I think you should be. We only have a limited amount of time left because we've had a great discussion and time is kind of flying by. I do have to ask you about, changing gears again, that strategic planning is also a big part of the Birch Group. And the question that I have to ask you is, many consulting companies engage in strategic planning. What makes the Birch Group's approach unique?
We use a very simplistic approach. We don't create plans that are that thick and end up becoming shelf documents. Our typical strategic plan, after all the research boiled down, ends up being, including the implementation phase, less than 30 pages. It becomes actually a working document that people use to manage their business.
You know, John, I'm very interesting that you say that because I myself have had a large stint in the corporate environment. We've had consultants come in there, 200-page documents, they become good shelf material.
Who reads them?
They're never used. And I think too many corporate officers get too enamored with the volume of work versus the effectiveness of that work. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. We work with companies in shooting what they really have to accomplish to either change the company or to continue the company towards profitability. My favorite clients are the ones that are doing well and want to do better and come to me and say, can you help us do a strategic plan? We want to create heights that we've never hit before.
That's very interesting. I think it's kind of unique. I mean, there's been some, with the current political environment, there's been some attention, a lot of attention paid to consulting companies like Bain and others that really go into companies looking to strip things out. Birch Group, you kind of look more towards building things up. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Sometimes you have to cut back.
I understand.
If you're losing business for one reason or another, you can't afford to have a huge staff that you can no longer pay for. And sometimes by trimming down either salary or other expenses, you're creating a situation where some of the people keep their jobs and prosper.
But sometimes, don't you think that it's used too much on like the first blush? In other words, instead of looking at building, they look at the lower hanging fruit of cutting costs, and sometimes that's not the best way for long-term
They're
growth.
looking for the immediate return.
Exactly.
And I think that's a problem with our society. As shareholders and corporations are looking for the immediate return. You've got to think futuristically. What can happen in the future? What are your potentials? And this one thing we look at is, what capabilities does a company have that can either make them the market leaders in the market they're playing in, or potentially re-engineer themselves and come up with new products where they have an advantage over the competition.
It certainly makes sense. Well, John Birch from the John Birch Group, we are unfortunately out of time. For our viewers out there that would like to get more information on the John Birch Group, how can they do that?
They can reach us at the Birch Group at snet.net is our email. Our phone number is 860-677-0020. We'd love to hear from people.
John Birch from the John Birch Group, thanks so much for being on the Business Buzz.
Pleasure, Jeff.
And thank all of you for tuning in to another edition of the Business Buzz. We'll be back next week with another exciting guest. Thanks for tuning in.